It's just my pleasure to be able to introduce the founder, one of the co-founders and the current leader of the Breakfast Club New Jersey, the real Frank Kovacs. That's how he's listed on our screen, the real Frank Kovacs. So Frank, the meeting is yours.
Good day, everybody, and thank you and welcome to the Breakfast Club New Jersey. As many of you know, the Breakfast Club was started close to 20 years ago. We were formed right after 9/11. The reason I put the group together was to help the individuals initially that lost their jobs due to the 9/11 tragedy. There was no way back then we could have ever anticipated all of the financial and economic and now pandemic issues that would have faced the country, and over those 20 years, the impact that it would have had on the job market and the career management landscape. The needs for networking are more paramount today than they've ever been within that 20-year period. And basically, what we've done with the Breakfast Club is early on, because we've had a lot of technologists as members of the group, is to try to leverage social media to the greatest extent to really give an edge to our members in their job search. So in doing so, we initially started out with the Yahoo group to use that as our principal communications venue. Again, back then, who would have ever anticipated the roller coaster ride that Yahoo would have gone on as a company? But, today have switched to groups.io because Yahoo Groups no longer exists, nor does Yahoo, the company itself, in the form that it was. And we also take advantage of Facebook groups capability, LinkedIn group. We have a presence there, and we use Meetup quite extensively. You may ask, well, why would you have instances of the Breakfast Club on all these different platforms? And they're all used for different purposes. The groups.io replaces the ability for us to communicate via email. So as you're a member of the group, you get access to our groups.io account for the Breakfast Club NJ. That is how all of our different instances are consistently branded and used. And that allows you to prepare an email and send it out to all of our members. You send it from the email that you joined from, and you simply send it to the Breakfast Club NJ at yahoogroups.plural.com. I'm sorry, I'm falling into my own trap. Groups.io. The reason for that is if you have anything that's job search or career management related only, you can email the whole group. Some examples of communications that would be acceptable would be if you wanted to introduce yourself to the group, explain, what type of job you're looking for, what type of geography, some companies that you're targeting, to try and identify people at those targeted companies so you can learn more about the company, learn more about its culture, its hiring practice, how they label job titles at the company, and then ultimately, have those individuals help you network into the company and possibly straight to the hiring manager for any type of job that you're looking to do. The LinkedIn group is, quite frankly, we have thousands of members that are in a highly concentrated area between Philadelphia, primarily New Jersey, and New York. And within those area, to have that many professionals, many with 20, 30 years experience, it's quite fruitful because they've had multiple employers, and the targeted companies that you may be looking at is employers where they have work now, or know somebody at. So again, it's all about connecting and building those relationships into the companies that you're targeting. We have some members that have as many as 30,000 contacts on LinkedIn. So, the strength of your network is very critical with you. The one thing that I would say is try and build relationships with these individuals, not just connect with them to see how many numbers you have. The other area that we talked about was Facebook. The reason why we promote Facebook groups as well is simply the statistics that there are many more people on Facebook than they are on LinkedIn. So your ability to connect with people, that you went to high school with, went to college with, used to work with, former neighbors, etc. These are the people that you have relationships with already. So we highly recommend using Facebook in that vein in order to build the connections with people that you have relationships with. And the final one that we utilize is Meetup.com. And Meetup.com is very good in that it helps us out, number one, with the administration of the group, in that once you join the Meetup group, it will send to you all of our information when we're having meetings, who's presenting, all the details on the meeting, and give you reminders of when it's going to occur. But also, when you're having a meeting, sometimes you remember the person's name. Sometimes you remember the person's face. What Meetup does that's very nice for the attendees is following the meeting, it gives you a list of everybody that, had signed up to attend. And a lot of times, if somebody said a point that might be critical to your search during the meeting, or something for your career that you want to follow up on, now you could go to meetup.com, you get that list of who signed up to attend, and a lot of times you can match the face or the name to the avatar or to the person's name, and then have their contact information and be able to message them and follow up. So these are just a few of the different ways that, different avenues of social media that we use for the Breakfast Club NJ, how we utilize them, and really how they're beneficial to the team. In addition to that, we have our monthly meeting, which we're at right now. Jerry Payton and David Shuckman are very instrumental as our presentation committee of seeking out individuals who would be good presenters for the group. And they look for people that are either focused on critical aspects of job search or career management, and we try and keep it fresh and look at individuals who have a compelling message for our members that would have good interest. David, we have the strong advantage with him that he leads the PSG of Mercer County group, so they meet weekly. So he has to put on 52 presentations a year. So with that, we benefit where he brings in a lot of the best for the Breakfast Club, which is very good. Alex Freund, who's here today, also is well networked and attends a lot of different meetings and groups and presents at many of them. So again, the people that are here aren't just, people in transition. There's a lot of alumni here that give of their time, month after month to help out those in transition. And with that, they have a strong network of individuals that they know of. And when they see a good presentation or one they feel that would be excellent for the Breakfast Club, they bring that forward. And then also Adrian Roman is on today. Adrian has done a significant amount of work in, helping the Breakfast Club get these different platforms like Meetup in place and Facebook group. But Adrian also publishes a very widely circulated document that talks about all the meetings that are taking place during the month in job search and career management. And again, it's all about networking. So a message like that summarizes all the networking opportunities that are available out there is critical. And Alex, who we talked about earlier, has a website called landingexpert.com. On there is a list of all the networking groups in the tri-state area. So, there's a lot of reference materials here that you could plug into that will help you become aware of other groups that exist, the details of where they meet, when they meet, who the leader of the group is, the style of meetings they have. You know, they're by every different classification. They can be by industry, they can be by profession, they may be by level, some of them. So really suggest you strongly check out those resources so that they can help you, because, you know, you should be spending a significant amount of your time networking during your job search, because that is definitely going to be the way that's going to help you and get your job. And also, I see George Pace is on. I don't know why your acronym is KG, unless you're shortening up Keep Pace with George to just KG. But George also runs a YouTube channel that has a mountain of information out there for job search and career management. So please take full advantage of the group and the people that are here to help you, and tap into all these resources so that this way, you know, your search, you know, may be missing, you know, certain key elements. And I believe that through all these different reference materials, it definitely be helpful to you in order to help get your career on track. So with that, you know, as I said, Jerry and David spent a lot of time, you know, lining up different speakers for us. You heard a little synopsis from David of what today's topic is and what it's about. I'm going to pass it over now to Jerry Payton, who will do a detailed introduction of our presentation and our speaker. Thank you, everybody, and welcome to today's meeting.
Thank you, Frank. Good morning, everyone. As Frank had mentioned, today's speaker, thanks to David, we have an excellent presenter, an excellent presentation for you. And now I'll introduce today's speaker. Jeff Bonaldi is the founder and CEO of the Explorer's Passage. Jeff's objective is to use his organization to help tackle the world's most important social and environmental issues through adventure travel experiences across the planet. TEP partners with the world's leading visionaries and institutions to provide travelers with a more immersive and impactful travel experience so that guests have the opportunity to transform their lives and the planet through power of adventure. He believes that businesses can and should be used as a force for good in the world. Jeff is also the founder and CEO of Bonaldi & Company, a business advisory firm dedicated to helping entrepreneurs and organizations manage their growth models. I'd now like to introduce Jeff.
And thank you, Jerry, and thank you, Frank and David, for having me on today. Again, my name's Jeff Bonaldi. I do a few different things, and I'll kind of walk through how that all came about. But I kind of look at my career as a bit of a journey. You know, I grew up in northern New Jersey, and I went to the College of New Jersey. I live in Princeton Township, but I went to the College of New Jersey, and I spent about 10 years in this area. And in college, I was a political science major, and I was class president. I'm like, well, maybe I'll be a politician or something. And I decided I didn't really want to do that. And I kind of went on this business journey, which I'm gonna walk through in a few minutes. And you never know where your career goes. It can start out one way, but if you kind of let go and really evolve with the process, it can take you to some pretty magical places. In terms of today's presentation, I'm going to try to speak to about 40 to 45 minutes, and then we're going to leave time for 15 minutes for question and answer. We can either do that, you can unmute, or you can do it in the chat. My focus will be today on, again, my journey, how I built my travel company, and the process that I took on that to really think about, what I wanted to do with my life. I had this great career in banking, but I wasn't happy. And how could I come up with something that was very unique to me that I can create and actualize in the world? And I want to share some of the tips on how I did that. And then, talking about some of the first steps to take in launching that new business. So I was a political science major at the College of New Jersey. When I was a senior in college, I actually decided to start a new business. My father had passed away, unfortunately, a few years before, and he had worked on this patent for this sporting goods product. And I thought, well, maybe I can finish it off for him. I could, build this company and launch it to the world, and then I said, give the money to my mom, and I can go do travel and go do something else. And I started the company the beginning of my senior year in college. I did it for the whole year, and then we exhibited at the Jacob Javits Convention Center in New York City at the end of my senior year, and we had this really big response from everyone. And from that show, I ended up getting better manufacturing for the product. I ended up getting people who would help finance it. And 3 months after college ended, I had basically kind of like an incubation firm gave me an office in the city. They gave me capital, and I ran with it for about 2.5 years. Initially, we had some really good success, but started to hit on so many walls that I couldn't get past, and got really down on myself. I couldn't meet my numbers. I couldn't make it truly successful or self-operating business, and I decided to quit. And at that time, because it was so emotionally linked to who I was and kind of the death around my father, I remember saying to myself at around 24 years old, I'm never going to start a business again, and I'm never going to do anything that I'm passionate about again. So at that point, I said I'd focus on making money. I moved back to the Princeton area. I was teaching tennis part-time in Princeton, and going to UPenn at night taking business classes. And I got a job at Merrill Lynch Investment Managers. So for any of you who are in this area, on Scudder's Mill Road, Merrill Lynch Investment Managers used to be, right off Route 1. And I started there as a marketing analyst, and then was able to move over to become a fixed income portfolio manager, which I did there for about 2.5 years. And then the company BlackRock merged with Merrill Lynch Investment Managers and became what is now the largest asset manager in the world. But they wanted to move our unit to Delaware, and I didn't want to kind of go outside New Jersey at that point in time. I wanted to go more north. So I took a job at Citibank in New York City, got kind of a more senior role in portfolio management. And all in all, I spent about 2.5 years at Merrill Lynch, almost 13 years at Citibank in portfolio management and sales roles. And I had, for my age, I had an incredible career. I was making very good money. I had a very supportive manager. I worked with incredible people, but I wasn't happy, and I couldn't really figure out why. I was like, well, if I'm getting these, raises in my pay, if I'm getting more, if I'm climbing up the ladder, I should be thankful for what I had, and I didn't want to be there every day. Through the middle of that 15-year process, I started to think, if I could wake up every day and do something I was really passionate about, what would that be? And I started to, I'm 43 right now. And when I was 33, so about 10 years ago, which was midway through my banking career, I went on a hike, and it actually was the first hike of my life at 33. And it was a place called Bear Mountain. And you can see this is a picture of Bear Mountain. Some of you might have been there before. It's about an hour outside New York City. And everything changed for me that day. I felt so connected to the nature experience that I was in. I really enjoyed kind of the challenge of climbing that very little mountain, but hiking up that small mountain. And I really felt a lot of camaraderie with the group of people that I was hiking with. And I got home, and I just noticed it made me feel very different doing that activity as opposed to being in my day job. And I really, not from a business perspective, but from a personal perspective, I was looking to be more connected to what I was doing. So I started to climb mountains all over the United States, and then I started climbing mountains all over the world, and horseback riding and scuba diving. And I had really found something that I was extremely passionate about. And I got to the point about a year or two later where I was like, well, maybe I can, I can start a business by taking other people to do these things that is having a massive effect on my life, and I can share it in a way to them that would affect them as well. So in 2014, I launched my travel company called the Explorer's Passage. Now, a little bit different from the first time I launched a company. The first time I had my day job was really, my father's business, and at nights and weekends I was waitering tables and teaching tennis. But this was different. I had a good job, and I saw how hard a startup is. And I didn't want to be in a position where I took a leap of faith. A lot of people think about becoming an entrepreneur that you need to quit everything, take all this risk. And I started to look at it very differently. I said, well, I have a good job. I can self-fund it. I didn't want any partners. I wanted to have full autonomy of my company. So I decided to build it on the side. And that's what I did. Over the next 6 years, I starting in 2013, the next 6 years, it took me about 25 hours a week on the side. And the goal was to only leave banking once it felt safe, once it was fully sustainable, once it felt like there was no risk. And I said to myself, if that never happened, I wouldn't leave. But eventually in 2018, it got to the point where it felt safe and more comfortable enough to leave, because I went step by step on the side. And again, in 2018, I left. We didn't have the best year last year with COVID. We could talk about that more in a few minutes. But we're coming back pretty strong at the moment, and it's really become, turned into this really incredible organization. Guests from over 50 countries have joined our trips. We operate all over the world. We do ships, cruise ships to Antarctica and the Arctic. We take people to Nepal and Iceland. And we do a lot around conservation. So how can we use these experiences to teach people about our world, to teach people to protect our world? And very fortunate to work with Robert Swan, who is the first person in history to walk to both poles, and also Dr. Jane Goodall, which many of you probably know, who's done a lot in Africa, where we've done a few trips where she's had the pleasure of joining us in Tanzania for the day. Featured in a lot of the top media, and actually in March we were awarded from Travel and Leisure magazine as one of the most dynamic companies in the world from a travel perspective. So, from this kind of idea of following something I was passionate about, it turned into this incredible thing. It's not been without challenges, as you could probably imagine, and I don't make as much as I used to, but my happiness level is through the roof compared to what I was doing. So for me, it was the right move. And even with things as tough as things got within COVID, I never really looked back or regretted anything that I've ever done. I just included a few pictures from some of our groups around the world. You can see up here, we have a group at Machu Picchu in Peru. We have on the upper right, there's one of our ships to Antarctica, where we take about 130 people every year. There's a group on the lower right on the top of Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa at 20,000 feet. And then on the left, I had to start that tour in Bear Mountain just because it meant a lot to me by being my first hike ever. So, you see a lot of smiles on the face. You see a lot of people who are passionate about the trips that we provide them. So I say your turn, right? I speak to so many of my friends because I still am very connected to my friends in the corporate world, and I ask them, or they ask me, they're like, I feel stuck, I'm not fulfilled, and I want to have more purpose. And it's tough to, it's a lot of people try to, like, if they're not happy with their job, they try to get another job within their organization. I did that a number of times, or they try to find another company. And it feels good for a little bit, right? You get that little jolt of excitement of that learning for about 6 to 12 months, but I've noticed it kind of fades away. And I'm of a belief that if you really, really want to find something that fully aligns with you, then you need to create it. And it needs to be created as basically a replica of who you are and what you love and what fulfills you. A lot of people think, well, where do you begin? And that's a really good question. And it really starts for me is the idea. You know, I spent a lot of time reflecting on an idea, and many years. Something that really resonated with me when I finally, you know, when my company reached a lot of success, I reflected back to my father's company that I had started. And I think the reason that it didn't work was because I wasn't really passionate about it. You know, I was trying to do it for him, which, you know, I guess I thought was noble, but it wasn't my company. It wasn't my passion. I think, you know, starting your own company is very challenging, and if you're not really passionate about what you're doing, it's not going to work. Steve Jobs has a famous quote about that. So, you know, I really narrowed it down to 3 categories. You know, what are you good at? What do you love, and what gives you a sense of fulfillment in life? And we're going to elaborate on each one of these in a little more detail. You see a picture of me on the right-hand side. That's in the Chilean Andes. But you know, my example of these is I was really good at assembling people in groups. I was in a fraternity in college. We would always have parties. I liked having meetings at work and bringing people together in finance. And so you know, that was something that I was just naturally good at. What did I love? When I reflected on what did I loved adventure. I was really getting into this whole hiking and adventure thing. I'm a big history buff. I'm always reading history books or biographies on famous presidents and leaders. And I really like storytelling. I really like finding, you know, these special stories in history and telling people about them. And then what gives me a sense of fulfillment? And for me, I love creating experiences for people to show them how amazing they are, or how powerful they are, or being helping them be, you know, find something in their life that can really help them shine. So, you know, kind of keep that in mind as we move forward. But we're going to dig a little deeper into what are you good at. You know, a little story. When I was in college at the College of New Jersey, I went to Princeton University on on just a visit for the first time, and I remember seeing the campus, and I was very blown away. I imagined that this is what Europe must be like, and I was so amazed with it that I started to bring my friends and family on these little tours that I made around campus. I would show them where Einstein sat. I would show them the school that was named after Woodrow Wilson, and I was so fascinated with it. And I didn't think of it as creating tours at the time, but it was just something I was just natural at, something that I enjoyed. A lot of us don't realize that the things that come so easy to us are the things that we're supposed to be doing. I had this belief that work should be difficult, that work should be very challenging, and I ended up actualizing that by going into jobs that were very challenging for me and not seeking the paths that were a lot easier. And I don't know why some of us do that, but it's something for all of you to consider and think about, you know, what does come easy to you? And, you know, are you doing that at work, or could you shift more of your work to the things that come very naturally to you? Yeah, as I mentioned, my examples, and, you know, I'm very good at assembling people. I'm good at showing people the places that I love. I really enjoy it. And I'm actually really good at managing risk. I was a portfolio manager in banking, and I really love looking at all the potential risks from an investment, but also now the risks that, you know, when we take people to these challenging places around the world, how do we manage it? And I really enjoy that. You know, again, some ideas to think about for you is, are you very good at solving problems? Are you very good at public speaking? Some people are really good at building relationships. It comes so naturally to them. And some people are really good at negotiating. So, you know, this is kind of a few clues for you as you start to think about, you know, again, what are you good at? So we go into my second key highlight on this is, what do you love? You know, again, for me, I spent a lot of time on this because I was like, if I'm going to leave banking, I'm going to do something I'm completely passionate about. I'm going to wake up every day feeling like myself, feeling like I'm not going to work. And I was very keen on that. And again, at first, it was really around this whole idea of the intersection between adventure, storytelling, and history. And I am just such a history fanatic, and I love reading about this. And I thought to myself, well, how could we create tours that take people to places, but that bring out the history much more than that was being done at the time? And our first tour actually was based on an old Buddhist legend in Nepal, where the second Buddha traveled throughout Nepal defeating these demons. It's a whole myth. But I heard this story, I read it in the New York Times, I was fascinated by it, and I went on a plane, I took a plane to Nepal about 6 months later, and I followed the path that the second Buddha took. And I started to see that this story was embedded in the local culture. Buddhist monasteries were built based on this story, on grounds that looked like parts of the demon. And I thought to myself, well, wow, this is really incredible. And I was very passionate and excited about it. So that was how our first tour was created. So I think, you know, as you think about it, what brings a smile to yourself? You know, when you were young, a lot of us had these dreams and ideas. For me, I wanted to be an explorer. I loved Indiana Jones. I never thought I could actually do it, but you know, really reflect on that. And that, I think you'll find a lot of clues to figure out what you love as you go through that kind of reflection and meditative process. The third, which, you know, is you know, while it's third, it may be even one of the most important, is around fulfillment, right? Because a lot of us are content at our day jobs, right, in the corporate world or in what we're doing, but we don't feel fulfilled. And you see so many people who are in corporate jobs where they get involved in charity work within the organization and without, because they're missing something emotionally. They're missing something from a psychological need point of view. You know, we all have it programmed in our DNA to help others, right? And how can we do that with our work? Again, for me, these travel experience had such a big impact on my life. I wanted to create experiences where they could help the world and also help other people. We started trips where we're working with wounded war veterans and people who had PTSD, to take them in the mountains to kind of help them rebuild through these very difficult experiences, provide them community on these trips. And we saw it was having a massive effect on their life. For me, that is extremely fulfilling. If I could do that all day and instead of kind of some of the more generic trips, I would. So, you know, I thought about that as kind of creating my company, but what about you? You know, just some ideas to think about. You know, some people really like building homes. Some people, which Habitat for Humanity gives people an option to do that. Some people like animals. Some people like, you know, caring for people. So, you know, reflect on that. What brings you fulfillment? What gets you kind of really what gets you going inside? Because it's a very important part of your ideation process. You know, I would say with all of these things, it's not like I woke up one day and it was a light bulb went off. Well, that was it. It was a daily process where I kept reflecting, taking notes, trying different things out, because you don't really know. You know, a lot of people say, well, I don't know what I love. How did you know what you love? Well, you have to try things, right? You have to volunteer. You have to sometimes delve into different things to figure out, you know, what fulfills you, what you're good at, and what you love. So, you know, there's a process to go about it. You know, so what I did is I had these three. I went through this process about what I love, what fulfills me, and whatnot, and I kind of wrote it down. And I thought about, well, how can I create a company out of this? And again, I didn't see any other companies doing these really deep historical adventure tours. So I didn't necessarily know there was a market, but I was very determined on creating a market. So again, you have an option to go into an existing market where there is one already, or you can create your own market. Sometimes it's a little, depending on the way you look at it, one can be harder versus the other. But an important thing too is the idea economically feasible. And that's important because I will say when I started some of my first tours, they were in these very remote and beautiful places, but not many people went there. So while we did have some sales, it wasn't really enough to support the business. So then I started to take my concept and bring it to places that a lot of people went to, like Mount Kilimanjaro or Inca Trail, which are a much more kind of popular travel destination. So as you think of this, how do you ensure that this is economically feasible is a very important component. And the startup time, commitment, and capital. I will stress over and over again, if I'm a very big believer that you only start a company while you have a job. I see a lot of people take a leap of faith, and it affects their family life. It puts more pressure on them to perform quicker, to get the company up quicker. You kind of blow through your own capital. And I was not in a rush. I was looking very, very long term on this. I didn't want debt. I didn't want people, I didn't want any equity partners because I wanted really full control of where I wanted to take the company. I didn't want to get in a situation where I was back, where people were controlling my day-to-day activity. So just a lot of kind of things to think about. If you have the luxury to have some money and to have time and you don't need to work, then that's a luxury to have. But if you're debating on, is it too much risk to start a company, I think it can, I'm living proof that it can be done slow and steady on the side. Taking your first step. So again, so many people ask me, they're like, well, what is the first thing you do after you come up with your idea? And I'm not sure why, but I have found that when you come up with your company name and your logo, it has a really big psychological effect on people. You did your whole process in coming up with your idea for your business, but now you're coming up with the name. It puts an identity on it. It provides that, that first step to that this is actually real, right? And you put that on letterhead, you put that on the business card. And I've seen for me and for other people, it provides that first level of motivation for them to take the second and third and fourth step. As you think about, just some tips, as you think about your name, think about a name that embodies you, that embodies your brand, something that you're passionate about. What are you trying to sell? With me, I got a lot of feedback from my friends and from my network. The Explorer's Passage, it's a little of a different name for travel, but I wanted to make it of what I was passionate about, what the company embodied. I was obsessed with exploration at that point in time as the starting of my company. So I wanted the word explore or exploration in it. And then I've always been fascinated by a place called the Northwest Passage. It's in northern Canada, and for centuries and centuries, it was considered impossible to pass from an exploration perspective. In the 1800s, it was finally done, but I wanted that idea that you can overcome obstacles as part of your life. So that's where the word passage came from. And for me, it resonated strongly with me. Once you come up with that name, I'm a big believer in securing a trademark. If you search online, you can find a pretty good trademark attorney get a trademark done for about $1,000 US. It just prevents future legal issues going forward. You can get your social media sites for free: Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and then get the domain from a company like GoDaddy, your website domain, which is only about $14 to get it for 1 year. So some of the things to think about as you do come up with that name. It's a good first step, and then you take the next step from there. The second step, I'd say, is to create the logo, because you got the name, and now you have a logo that really resonates with you. It's your logo is your bridge from an idea to reality. It really gives identity to your company. You can see my logo right here on the right-hand side. I wanted something to show mountains and adventure, but also a city, and we're passing through, that passage through that, again, the unknown. So again, the name and the logo can provide an enormous momentum in your journey. So if you don't know where to start, I say start there, and at least gives you a framework from where to go. I have a few articles. You're welcome to email me after this that I write periodically for Entrepreneur Magazine. I've written a few articles around this process. I've written an article about the first 8 steps to take when starting a new business. So we talk about the name and the logo, but then we go even further from there. I'm happy to send you those articles, or if you Google my name, Jeff Bonaldi, you can see my entrepreneur.com page as well. So I'll talk a little more about this side. Is I really like to spend a lot of time in creating a strong business framework for the company. The stronger kind of foundation you have, taking more time at that really sets you up for a lot of success in the future. Here's my website's actually down at the moment because we're transferring it to a new hosting provider. It'll be up again next week. But if you have questions, you can email me at jeff@jeffbonaldi.com. I can send you I have a 15-page mastery guide that kind of walks through the ideation process, and then this is the article I was talking about. You can find it online, or I'm happy to email it to you. But I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and now I'll go into the chat. We can open it up for questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jeff. And I did put a note in the chat also for anyone to see. And this is not just a presentation, finding your passion. It's not just about starting a company, but you could also use it to finding a passion in your full-time work.
Yep.
And your full-time work may be it's time to no longer work as a full-time employee. I'll become an independent consultant. That's actually the path I took. Maybe change your mindset from working at a big company and working to a small company. There may be benefits to you doing that. There's different chemistry there. Or you know what? It's time to change industry because it's just something that you really enjoy doing, and you can still work for another company. Or maybe change your role at a company as well, or you might have been a mid-level manager and it's been frustrating. The money was good, but you just really enjoyed being an assistant manager or someone more clerk-oriented. A number of years ago, for a company I worked for, I was a tech manager. I was hiring programmers, and a gentleman I interviewed with had just come from a management position, a tech management position. I liked his resume, and I was really curious why he applied for the position. We had a nice discussion. He said, I'm just not suited to be a manager. He said, I did it. My boss wanted me to do it. I didn't enjoy it. I want to be a programmer. And he stuck around with the company for about 14, 15 years. So it worked out very well for him. So that's what his passion was, is different passions. And Jeff is really giving you a very solid example of how he followed his. So I love the story. I'm so glad you're here today for this group as well.
Thanks, David. I'll start out. I saw some notes during the presentation. Edith, you consider Bear Mountain my backyard. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's a really, again, very, very special place to me, and I hope you really get to enjoy it as well. David, thank you for the note. Yeah, we are leading an Antarctica trip again early next year. It was supposed to be in November, but as you can imagine, because of COVID, Argentina is still closed, which is the kind of the gateway into Antarctica. So we're moving it back to March. Valerie. Sorry.
By the way, anyone who's considering going to Antarctica in the summer because it's warmer, our summer is their winter. So
yeah, it's true.
Just plan accordingly.
That's true. Valerie, yeah, I heard there's a new Indiana Jones, which Steven Spielberg and Harrison Ford's doing. So I can't wait. That'll be a lot of fun. And let's see else. Yeah, Valerie, good comment and trying to keep the domain name short. Yep, I agree with that.
Dara has a question. How do you get to Bear Mountain? What else is there to see?
There it is. How do you get to Bear Mountain? It's about an hour north of New York City. It's you can drive to the top, or you can kind of hike. There's also a lodge there called the Bear Mountain Lodge. If you want to, you can stay over there, and they have a really nice restaurant. It's also very close to West Point. Right now, West Point's closed for tours, but if any of you have not been to West Point, I would highly recommend it. It's a really beautiful place. A lot of people don't know, but it actually didn't start out as a school. It started out as a fortress, which was run by George Washington, and they were using it to try to stop the British from going up, from taking over basically the 13 colonies. It had a very fascinating history, which if you do a tour of it, you can see. So I would say Google it, Bear Mountain State Park, and check out West Point, and maybe check out the Bear Mountain Inn as well.
Are you referring to Fort Putnam, which is the fort above the military academy?
Well, West Point was actually a fortress. West Point was actually a fortress itself originally, before it was a school.
And by the way,
Fort Putnam that's above it, because they had made a chain, a metal chain that they actually stretched across the Hudson.
Yeah, I've actually seen. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, there's actually a piece of chain in the Bear Mountain Lodge. They're like, the locks of the chain are like this big. There's a piece of the chain on West Point, but yeah, I think they did it 3 or 4 times across the Hudson. It's very fascinating that they tried to stop the British boats with a chain. But yeah, not many people know about that. It's really interesting though.
And Dara, if you were looking for driving directions, it's pretty much at the end of the Palisades Parkway. So that would be one way to get there. So you can go up the Turnpike to the Palisades Parkway, or you can go up the New York Thruway. So that's another way to get up on the exits. Carol, you have your hand up. Yeah, unmute yourself.
Yeah, I was just commenting that I have been to Bear Mountain many times during all seasons. One of the things that I'm not sure what the new lodge is like, but the old lodge had a huge fireplace that they always had on. And they do have a link of the chain. And one of the nice things about the lodge is that their sort of their waiting room or their living room had chairs made from huge logs. So it was very sort of a neat little place.
Yeah, it's a pretty special place. Thank you for sharing. I see a note also by Michael. I'm in the process of doing the same. I've been in state government for about 18 years and started a photography business about 3 years ago to pursue my passion. My full-time job pays my bills while I work on my growing company. That's exactly what I did. Michael, it took me again about 6.5 years from complete start to finish to leave. It takes time, but yeah, it's funny too. I don't think that my company would have moved any quicker along even if I had quit. A lot of people think, oh, I had more time to work on it, but I'd also would have had more time to make mistakes and blow through money. And there's something about that companies take. There's like there's a concept of the passage of time. It just takes time for you to get out there and for you to think through the process. So yeah, I think it's a real smart way to go about it. Can you talk a little bit about how the pandemic impacted your business? Yeah, it's well, thanks for the question, Pat. So we had a really good year in 2019. I was really excited for 2020, and COVID happens. I actually had COVID right in the beginning of March of 2020. I fortunately didn't have it very bad, but everything started to really shut down with travel, and I got scared. We kind of, I was like, well, what am I going to do? And we had hundreds of trips that we had and people we had to cancel to move out, which was kind of my first goal, to do it in the right way. A challenging thing is for travel is a lot of people, when they book trips, especially during COVID, they wanted their money back from their tour companies or the travel agencies. But what a lot of people don't realize, what happens is when we get a deposit, we have to actually pay that deposit down to the local companies that we're dealing with around the world, whether it's in Peru or Nepal or Kilimanjaro, and we can't get that money back. So we had to handle it in a really, doing credits for people, moving people to different dates. In some cases, kind of digging into kind of cash reserves, because the money really wasn't there. It was in the local countries with the local hotels and whatnot. So a lot of kind of people don't really understand the back end of how travel works. But I needed to figure that out first, just to make sure all our clients were comfortable. And thankfully, 100% of clients were happy with us, and we were able to move all the dates. Secondly, I will say, you know, while financially it was a really tough year, it allowed me time to actually slow down, because when I was in banking and when I was running my company, I was traveling roughly 130 days a year around the world. And I wasn't doing the marketing for my travel business because I was moving so quickly. I was moving around. So I started to see areas where we could really pick up our marketing. And in a way, it was a blessing in disguise to kind of slow me down and to kind of look at these things differently. And we're seeing a lot of success now from that slowdown. Separately, I had started a consulting business helping other people with, you know, starting their businesses a year before, and thank goodness for that, because I was able to ramp that up. So the way which has really been a really cool journey. It's how it's how I've gotten to speak at some of these great forums and working with a lot of incredible people and businesses now. And I really enjoy that because I'm very fulfilled by seeing other people start their businesses. So the way I'm looking at my future now is to do both. I do have a staff at the travel company. So I'm really going to kind of do both 50-50 going forward, because I needed diversification. It was, you know, pretty scary to know that you can't sell your product to the world for, you know, now almost 18 months. So I feel much more comfortable with being diversified. So I'm trying to take the positives out of it. Again, financially it wasn't good, but there are so many other positives that I was able to see that, again, it was a bit of a blessing in disguise. So thank you for that question. Looking back.
Alex has a question.
Yeah, I said some history things. Thank you for sharing. Alex, yep, Jeff, where will you be in 5 years? And now in 10 years, you are an explorer and adventuresome, willing to take risks, present yourself very well, able to use your soft skills to influence and convince other people. However, it seems to me that you're somewhat restless and constantly desiring to do something else. Yeah, it's a good question. You know, I used to have a lot of goals about my future, and I used to plan a lot, and I used to see that the future always ends up being different. So I'll be honest with you, Alex, I don't really look that far in the future anymore. I try to do the best in the moment and then really see what the future unfolds into my life. I don't know, maybe that's the wrong way to look at things, but I take it more as it comes at the moment. You know, if I think I'm still on this constant journey for connection and doing what I'm passionate about. I will say that I started to see that working with people and their businesses does provide me a little more fulfillment now than travel does at the moment, which I thought is very interesting, right? Because in travel, you're taking people and you're sending them away, which is great. But when I feel like I'm much more connected to people and helping them out, or when I'm on a trip, it feels different. So I think I'm always constantly reflecting on what evolves from a connection standpoint and what I'm passionate about. So I did discover through travel also that I was very interested in some of these social and global issues. Like, you know, we're doing trips with Jane Goodall and Robert Swan around climate change and conservation. And we're actually working with National Geographic on a film to the South Pole for 2023 to help with a group of wounded veterans. So I'm very interested in kind of these issues. So I don't know where that goes, whether it's private or public sector, but I do like to be involved in the issues that I care about and see where I can contribute on that.
Jeff, allow me to add, we have a lot in common. We both lived in northern New Jersey, currently in the Princeton area. I also published in the Entrepreneur magazine. The difference between you and me, I am 30 some odd years older, and I'm a career coach, and I meet people like you every day. And one of the questions or one of the statements I say to my clients is this: where will you be in 5 years? Where will you be in 10 years? Because I snap my finger once and 5 years are gone. I snap it twice and 10 years are gone. And people look at me like I have two heads. You see, life moves on. If you don't have a path, if you don't have a road that you follow, then you just, I have this expression that I started using many years ago. you are what I call a helium balloon. A helium balloon is a balloon in the air, and it just moves in the direction of the wind.
Yeah.
And you see, now if you have a lot of luck, that's great. But if the wind moves in the wrong direction, you see, you mature and you cannot go back 10 years. Oh, I should have done something different. Pretty soon you'll be 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, and then you had a wonderful past, but you need to live life and, you know, family and whatever. So the picture is much bigger than what's presented to us right now. That's the reason I'm asking the question.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's good for me to, yeah, I definitely see your point, and I think it's good. It's good for me, something that I should consider. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I see a note from Dara. What are some great places in the world to adventure that's on people's bucket lists? I would say, you know, in terms of adventure places, the top hiking treks are like the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu, Mount Kilimanjaro, Mount Everest Base Camp. You don't need to go all the way up. You can go like halfway up. Antarctica is very big. People love Iceland, and a lot of people really like Costa Rica now. Costa Rica is a real popular place, especially during COVID. It's one of the few countries that you can travel to from the United States that's completely open, and you don't even need a COVID test. Michael, yeah, sorry, you go? Yeah.
So George Pace, you could form a company. It's always winter somewhere, and just go around the world wherever winter is.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Oh, I know. Trust me.
Or summer.
Ski Portillo in Chile. I watch it every year when they open up the ski season.
Yeah. Michael, yeah, Easter Island, I haven't been. It's off the coast of Chile, as you know, but it does look like an amazing place that hopefully I can get to one day. Valerie, did you change your model? Did your business model change? For my travel company, my marketing model changed a lot. Alex, to your point, I was kind of a little scattered with my marketing approach, and it gave me more time to really think about how we market our trips. So I actually went really deep into search engine optimization, and we have a really, really strong model now that we're kind of producing a lot of content. We've gotten to the point where we're ranking like top 3 or 4 on Google for a lot of key search terms. So more of the marketing model changed a bit, which was something that was needed because, again, I was a bit scattered on that. I'm trying to figure out what our sales funnel was. What is the biggest failure you faced, and how did you overcome? I don't know if I look at anything like failure. I kind of look at everything more like experiences. So if something, you know, I'm trying to take more like the positive of things. You know, I guess, listen, there was part of me that wonders why I stayed in banking so long, because it's not, I learned a lot from it, but I don't know if it really represents like who I am. And but if I look at it on the flip side, like everything I learned there has enabled me to do what I do now, right? So the job enabled me to start the company on the side. The skills I learned in banking enabled me to run my company and help other people the way that I do. So I think, you know, I did spend some time though thinking through that, because it was a lot of years. But yeah, I don't know if I look at anything in my life as failure, but more so as experiences and learnings to go forward. In terms of how I feel like I overcome things, I do have I've always been very persistent at things, where I tend not to kind of give up. Sometimes that's not my fault, but I do have I've always had a good desire to keep plugging away, keep persevering, and so when I do come through challenges, I feel like I can think my way through and I can find a way forward. George, I would love to visit Sad Hill, which is near Burgos, Spain. I've actually never heard of that, so I have to check that out. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, it's actually a big deal. It's like in the middle of nowhere, and that was that cemetery. Like I did some research on it because I love the movie, and I guess it was Generalissimo Franco or something was still in charge, and they negotiated with, I think, the Spanish army to actually build that cemetery. I mean, the whole backstory is great on Sad Hill, and they just recently, I think within the past 2 years, they just recently, quote unquote, restored it. So, but it's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I've never seen that movie either. I like movies a lot. I'll put that on my list. It's really good.
You've never seen the spaghetti westerns? Oh my God.
The good, the bad,
And the ugly. Oh my God, that's and one of the stars was Van Cleef, who grew up in Somerville or Somerset, New Jersey. He's the bad. Van Cleef.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Lee Van Cleef.
Lee Van Cleef grew up in it was either Somerville or Somerset, New Jersey. I think Somerville, New Jersey.
Oh wow. Okay. I'll put it on my list. I will. I'll definitely check it out. Thank you for that. Yeah, Edith. Yeah. Thanks for your comment as well, Edith, on living presently.
Somerville. I just checked.
Great quote by Ferris Bueller. I'm actually watching Ferris Bueller with my 12-year-old daughter next week. She's never seen it, so I've been doing a lot of 80s movies with her lately, like Back to the Future and Big and all that. So, so gotta add that. Valerie, yep, Machu Picchu, fantastic place. Actually, I have a friend there right now. She said it's 1/6 of current visitors, but mostly in-country visitors. Peru opened recently. About a month ago, they stopped their mandatory 14-day quarantine, but still travel to South America has been very limited. Edith, some of your experience have resulted as a naturally organic growth of one moment. Many small businesses evolved in very large entities due to it. Yeah, you know, I kind of, again, it's funny, I get to the next step and I see what presents itself, and then I go from there, and some pretty cool things happened. Like, again, working with National Geographic next year, working with Jane Goodall, and so some pretty amazing things have happened by being, I guess, flexible. But I do see the need for planning as well. New Zealand, I have not been. It's the only continent. New Zealand, Australia, I haven't been yet, but hopefully one day. Deborah, how do you design a business model that is not all-consuming and established partners or constitute? For example, I know someone who was a 2-person accounting and payroll company who did not have a way to go away on multi. Yeah. So I used to be the type of person that would work night and day, but about 2 years ago that stopped, and I really focus on my balance now. So I work from probably 8 to 6, and I try not to work on weekends or nights. And it's taken balance. And for me, I had a lot of trouble letting go as an entrepreneur. Like, this company is my baby, and I didn't want anyone to like mess up my baby, right, or do anything wrong. So I did a lot of work. I work with my own personal coaches and mentors, and I did a lot of work on letting go. And letting go doesn't happen overnight, Deborah. So I would say a lot of those entrepreneurs who kind of can't go away or whatnot, a lot of us have trouble delegating. But I'll say on that, if you don't have the right people to delegate to, you can't let go. You need people around you that you can trust, and you don't necessarily need to hire them full time. I have a great model where some of my people are full time, but I have a number of people, about 10 different people that work for me that are independent contractors that work maybe 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week, but they work on a very specific task that they specialize in, which points to a problem that entrepreneurs worry about their cash flow. Well, you don't have to bring in someone full time. You can find specialized people. But I think I'm kind of talking about a lot of different things here, but I would say it's possible to do that. Happy to chat with you about it if you send me an email, but it can happen very slowly, right? You find the right people, you let go where you can still maintain your own life. And I will say I have a pretty good balance now, and I'm running both businesses. So I typically don't work past 6 o'clock during the week, and I don't work weekends anymore.
One thing to add, Jeff, for anyone who's interested in, when you start a business, if that's the path you're going down, and you need a part-time something, there are a lot of people that do just that. They are independent consultants, as Jeff mentioned. And so the gentleman that I know, that he calls himself a virtual CIO. He doesn't work for one company, he's got many clients. And I know a gentleman who's a virtual CIO. So if you need tech type work on a part-time basis. So bookkeepers and financial planners and other operation managers will do it on a contingency basis. So you can get a full suite of skills on a as needed basis.
Yeah, very good point. And David, based on that, I'm gonna, in the chat, I'm sending you guys a link to a website called Upwork, which is basically a collection of independent contractors that you can pay for by the hour or by project. And I have used Upwork for the last 8 years. I have a graphic designer that I still work with from Europe. I've been working with her for 8 years. She does all our graphic design. I have, from Asia, I work with a video editor for the videos we do on our travel. So like, instead of hiring these full-time people, I do everything on a project basis. I understand what the cost for it is, and you could find some really good people. And I'll say, listen, if you start working with someone and it doesn't feel right, then make a change. Because we've seen that too. I've done that, where I think I have to stick with these people for a while. But having people as a contractor first allows you to establish a relationship and build trust with people. And once you have that, then you can bring them on for more hours. But again, build trust, learn to delegate, but delegate only if you have the right people. What would you say, Valerie? What would you say to a person who would like to start a new business but has never had a business before? I would say start very, very slowly. Valerie, I have this great article about the first 8 things to do. Then I can send it to you, with the logo. I would say start very, very slowly. Get a lot of advice. Meet with a lot of other business owners who have started businesses. Be very open to feedback. Limit the amount of cash you spend. There's a lot of ways to do things at no cost or very little cost. But yeah, that's kind of bit of a high level by saying that. But start slowly, minimize cash, and get a lot of advice. I still work with 2 of the same mentors I have worked with for the last 8 years. Every single week I meet with them. So I'm very, very big. I have this concept called my own personal board of advisors, and I'm constantly getting feedback from different people to take it in and to kind of formulate my own decision from what I think and from their advice as well. And it's really helped me avoid a lot of mistakes. I'll say one other thing. When I started my travel business, I knew nothing about the travel industry. So the first thing I did is I started working with a travel industry consultant. And I would meet with him once a month. I worked with him for 6 months. I felt like our time was done. I worked with another travel industry consultant after that for about 6 months. And then the next consultant I worked with was for 4 years, also a travel industry, former business owner. I'll say one other thing on that, a lesson I learned is that I felt that the third coach I worked with was the best because he had actually started a business. The first two travel industry consultants were kind of professional managers that were brought in the travel industry, but they had never started a travel company from scratch. I saw a very big difference from someone who had started a company in the sector as opposed to someone who was a professional manager but who had never started it. So just a little feedback there. Another thing is if you are going to get a consultant in a certain sector, is marketing is always the thing that I feel is the hardest, right? Like you could have this great product, you'll build your product, you'll build your service, but how to sell it, if you can find a sales funnel or a person who knows how to sell in that sector, it's worth gold, because ultimately if you can't sell, your business won't survive. So that was the thing that I've struggled with the longest. I still, have my moments with it, but we're getting there. But it's don't just assume that once you launch your product, everyone's going to buy it. I mean, I launched my company, all my friends are like, you're going to take your trip. Everybody was so excited. And I never got a sale from someone that I knew or from my network. It was always through my sales methods. So just to kind of be ready for that. Back to the Future Marathon last weekend. Yeah, this is a great movie. Great movie. Has your business had any legal issues? No one's ever, thank goodness, knock on wood, no one's ever pressed charges. We haven't had any legal issues, but I spend a lot of time on legal. So I do work with a travel industry lawyer. We obviously are doing things that are pretty, we're going some places that are pretty challenging. People hiking up mountains to 20,000 feet, there's risk of altitude sickness, there's risk of death. So we do have very strong liability waivers. We do provide a lot of clarification to clients. I spend a lot of time on contracts. I did a lot of that in banking. So, how are our contracts with our partners and our ships done correctly? I'm very big into minimizing my downside risk. So again, thank goodness we've never had an issue yet, but we have the insurance and legal network in place. I'm trying to do the best that we can, but hopefully, again, everybody's always in a good place on our trips, and we try to handle things the best with our clients. Like even in situations where we say a non-refundable deposit, and someone can't make the trip, maybe for a personal reason, we try to think long-term for the client. So I don't think short-term for money. I want to see how I can keep this client for 20 or 30 years. And typically that is, I feel like, a good way of doing business, and also to potentially avoid some legal issues as well. Great quote, Joe. I love that quote. Deborah, I saw that as a key problem in that scenario. Yep. I'm just going through this. Alex, how do you use your social media to promote your business? Alex, it's interesting. So we post maybe once a week on social media for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, but I've never seen social media as a successful sales funnel to sell travel. And a lot of my friends who run travel companies have not seen it as well. I think for us, social media is part of the whole ecosystem to support our marketing. People might check our social media if they learn about our company. But in terms of getting leads, most of it is coming through Google ads or search engine optimization through blogs. I think, when people search a trip, they go to Google, visit Machu Picchu or visit Iceland. Maybe I just haven't figured it out yet. But one of the things too is it's marketing for me has been the most challenging piece of the travel company. And I've seen, unless I'm focusing really on one or two sales funnels, then I start to get too scattered, where rather than putting like 10% into this sales funnel, 10% into this sales funnel. So I right now we go all in on SEO and content marketing, and we complement that with Google ads. But then on a lower layer, we're doing newsletters, we're doing email marketing, we're doing social media, but more as a complementary system, not as like a lead sales funnel.
Jeff, what do I need to Google in order for your company to come up on page 1?
If you Google hiking the Inca Trail as an example. So just to show you kind of like the power of SEO, I'm just going to type that into the chat. You Google hiking the Inca Trail. That's just an example. I think we're number 4 or 5 on Google. That has been a journey to be able to figure that out. To figure from an SEO perspective to how to rank on some of these key terms. I mean, the Inca Trail is the most popular adventure trek in the world, and we're now right in the middle of some of the top companies doing that. So yeah, but getting the model, it's taken about 7 years to figure that out, Alex, but kind of getting closer, and hopefully I can get that to number 1 soon, which is my goal.
Yeah, terrific.
Yeah, and when I look at, there's an idea with websites is organic search versus paid search, right? Organic search is anything that's not an ad on Google. So when you Google something, David, do we have a few more minutes if I show the group something?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, let me share my screen, because I'm really a fanatic with SEO and the power of it. So
yeah, you're still presenter. You can share. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me show everybody something really quick. So here's an example. You can see my screen?
Yeah.
If we Google hiking the Inca Trail, right here is an ad. You can see it says ad. You can see it says ad. You can see it says ad. Okay? So this is considered paid search. These 3 companies are paying for that place on Google. To get on the first page of Google, you need to be typically in the first 8 spots. And almost 75% of all traffic goes into the first page of Google. So if you're not on the first page of Google, it's likely that you're not, it's a good chance your website's not gonna be hit. I speak to so many people that are like, well, no one's going to my website. A lot of times they're on the third or fourth page of Google, no one's looking at that. So now you go underneath the ads. Well, let me say something too. About 50% of people click on ads and 50% of people click on organic search, which is non-ads. Right here is the first organic search that comes up. This is the second, third, we're number 4. I've been working on this for years. I'm really getting a really good model down on how to kind of get our content on the first page of Google. It's a much more obviously involved process, which David, I'm always happy to kind of come on again and kind of walk through my model of how to do this. But you know, you click on here, it brings you to our blog. And then, you know, our goal is to kind of capture the group's email addresses, but this is a very extensive post. It's 13,000 words. It's very detailed. And we're trying to show the client that we're an expert at this location. And our hope is that then they, you know, they get interested in one of our trips and they book with us. So again, it's constantly evolving. I keep getting better and better at it, but you know, there's some companies that I know that focus 100% on content marketing. There's some companies that focus 100% on Google Ads. And then there's some companies that do a mix. I would say we're 75% content marketing, 25% Google Ads.
Jeff, how many people will Google those 4 words, hiking the Inca Trail?
Yeah,
very few people.
Yeah, so there's a tool. There's a tool for that.
My question to you. Can you put in a generic word like hiking?
Well, we don't rank for hiking because we wouldn't rank for that, but I'll show you really quick. There's a tool called Uber Suggest. It's run by a guy named Neil Patel, who is an SEO expert. Oh, yeah. Shoot, sorry, I actually went in the wrong login. So this tool allows you to see how many people are looking for certain terms. Now, hiking for me is not a specific term enough, right? Because I want to be very specific to one of our trips. So here's a keyword idea. Hiking the Inca Trail. So this is Googled 1,000 times a month. Okay.
Yep.
So this tool allows you to see, what's being clicked on. This is how much you would pay if you did Google Ads for each click. Again, this is much more involved, but there's different tools like Uber Suggest that allow you to figure out what the search volume is. I've seen that if you like, Alex, to your point, if we went to hiking, it's probably a lot bigger, but I don't feel like it's a narrow enough search. It's 450,000 times a month. I tend to look for keywords that are 500 to 1,000 searches because we have a chance of ranking there. It's going to be really hard for us to rank for something like this, and it's not focused enough. You know, you got to think about the psychology of why people are kind of searching something like that.
So Alex, if he used the search term hiking and got 450,000 opportunities for views, this would probably blow his budget, his marketing budget, quickly. And the reason why is some people may be putting in the word hiking because they just want to hike along the Delaware Raritan Canal. And then they click on Jeff's page and see he's going around the world and quickly go away. But Jeff paid for that click, and that's not his audience. So when you do Google Analytics, Google Ads, you want to be as specific to your business, the keywords, as possible. So that's a great tool, or even just using Google Ads itself is free to do research. You only pay for the click, you don't pay for the use of the tool.
Yeah, I pay about, thanks David, I agree with that. Uber Suggest is about like $40 a month, but there's also, through Google Ads, there's a keyword planner, keyword search planner. It's a free tool through Google Ads that you or your clients can use. It basically is the same thing as Uber Suggest. I just think Uber Suggest is a lot more user friendly. That's it.
Jeff, are you using Google Trends?
I do look at it at times as well. Yep.
Okay, good.
As part of about thinking about like the trips people are searching or the terms people are searching. Yeah. But again, I emphasize that focus has always been so key for us. Like, it's so I only have a limited number of hours a day, and I try to stay as focused as I can into one or two sales funnels, and like a model that I can create that's actually sustainable and that my team can understand and run on my behalf on our model. Because if I start to go too far outside of it, it's just really challenging. It's challenging for us. So, but we're making some really good like especially on the SEO front. Like I never thought that we could rank on the first page of Google, like with companies like National Geographic and whatnot. And that was a very limiting belief. But I will say that SEO and content marketing is a very democratic process. So if you are really good at it and you produce the content, you can rank #1 on Google. Yeah, it's possible. So I mean, you can see me, we're #4 on that's a very challenging search term, especially since it's the highest, and we're ranking higher right now on that term than the company that moves the most people on that trip a year. So we're getting there. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
And I have a couple more, and I have a hard stop at 9:30. I apologize, everyone, but thank you so much for today. 2 more questions. So Adam, don't go on that. Sorry, the cruise question. Do I have advice on mitigating COVID risk on a cruise? I mean, a lot of cruises are being fully vaccinated. They're fully vaccinated cruises at the moment. I know Florida is fighting that as well. So it's a challenging time. I think, obviously everybody has their own opinions with respect to the vaccine as well. I think you got to do what you feel is right for you. If you are vaccinated, you should be okay. But does the cruise company also have a really strong testing policy? Because the vaccine is not 100%, right? So is the cruise company testing people before they board the ship with rapid tests on the port? So it's just something to think about, a combination of vaccines and as well as testing. And then, Michael, do I do all of our SEO? Okay. I have gone through a 7-year SEO journey, Michael. I have hired companies to help me with it on a limited time basis. 3 different agencies. I've learned and then I stopped. I got discouraged, and I will say that I saw the best success when we did it in-house. And I saw that when I went outsourced to the companies, that the quality of what they were doing for us was not that well. It was like SEO forms, kind of like. But when I finally took it in-house and spent the time, which I had over COVID, to really nail this down. And what I do is I hired an SEO consultant, not to do it for me, but to teach me. So I've seen that when I can do it myself, become an expert at a marketing channel, but bring in advice from different consultants on what I might be doing wrong to help me get through those blocks, it's been better. It's been more effective than hiring an agency. Yeah. So I guess, yeah, it is mind numbing, but if you have, and I've struggled with it, right? Like, but if you hire someone who knows what they're doing, if you meet with them once every week or once every 2 weeks and they can help you, it can change everything. Everything. So
I think there's one question, unless I missed it, from Valerie. Do you ever set up tours for groups? Do you set up photography specific tours? Did you get to that one?
Yeah, we actually have a photography specific tour in Mongolia, actually. We do. Yeah. I work with a photographer on that. Yeah, we do. I mean, we do some standard tours on our website. I think we have like 14, but then we do custom everywhere. There's a lot of stuff that we do people don't even realize. We're doing like we're doing a fly fishing trip for 20 corporate executives in Chile in March. So we can pretty much do any type of trip around the world. We take people to walk to the South Pole on skis. Yeah, pretty much everything. But I will say, I haven't been on a plane in 18 months, and I used to be on a plane half the year, and I do really like being home, which is funny. And I will say too, I noticed that I'm running the business much better when I'm not on the road, that I'm much more focused and in one place. I was micromanaging the trips too much. I was going on about 6-7 trips a year, but I'm going to limit it to now maybe 2 or 3 trips a year and just stay home and just having our team really handle everything on the road. So, I got 3 minutes left. Do they serve Mongolian buffet in Outer Mongolia? Yeah, it's a good question.
Don't answer that. That's
yeah, it's really more. It's more.
Move on. Yeah.
Authentic food. Any adventure trips in New Jersey? If you like hiking, I would Google Sunfish Pond. I'll put it in the chat. It's by the Delaware Water Gap. It's a really great hike that I enjoy. And then my favorite hike in the East Coast is called the Giant Stairs. It's in the Palisades. It's a little challenging, but it's only 4.5 miles. But you just got to really be prepared for it. But that's my favorite hike. It's along the Palisades. It goes on the base of the Hudson River. Really beautiful. I've done it probably 100 times.
So Jeff, you have about 2 minutes left, and I want to be able to say thank you and goodbye before you disconnect from the session. And so sincerely, this has been such an inspiring presentation, very motivational. And I think the theme, as we were talking earlier, is beyond just the passion of finding a business you could start, but using your passion, the value of your passion. And Jeff was able to explain that to us so wonderfully, how it worked for him. And hopefully we can all learn a lesson from that as well. So Jeff, I'm so appreciative that you are a friend of the job seeker support groups and that you and I got connected this way.
Oh, me too, David.
Yep, and thanks again for being now one of the presenters to the Breakfast Club New Jersey.
Great, thanks, David. 2 last things. If you ever have any questions on anything, you can feel free to email me. I'll send my email. But also, Entrepreneur Magazine did a story on how I made the transition about 3 years ago, which I can post that link, and it might provide that level of inspiration to. Let me just share it in the chat to you. And it was done by one of their writers about how I left banking and made it work. So let me just share that as well. Yeah, here it is right here. And yeah, it just walks through the entire journey of what happened. And again, hopefully this was helpful to you all, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the future. But have a great weekend.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you very much. And remember, folks, in just a moment, we will formally end the meeting. We will keep this session open, but turn the recording off. But just before we do that, I want to turn the meeting back over to Frank Kovacs, our meeting president and leader, for any final comments.
Again, I echo David's sentiment. Thank you for presenting today. If anybody has any presentations that they're aware of or presenters that they feel would be good for the Breakfast Club, please feel free to let David and Jerry know of the presenter and the presentation topic. We started out this meeting by talking about the different areas with groups.io and Meetup.com and other ways of using the Breakfast Club to help in your job search. Please take full advantage of that. What I'd love to see before the next meeting is those people that are in transition. Please go to the Breakfast Club NJ at Yahoo at groups.io, and please post out, an introduction to the Breakfast Club members, what type of position you're seeking, some targeted companies, what your value proposition is. If you're in transition and you've already done that, if you need help with getting contacts at companies you're targeting, put it out there. And then finally, hopefully we'll have some good landings between now and the next meeting. And what I'd ask for those of you that land to do is to just reflect on your search and post out to the group a message that, talks about things you've learned and maybe what was that aha moment or missing link that you feel was critical to helping you identify and land your opportunity, because that's good for the other members in transition, because they get insight into what worked for you. but also it may be something that they're not applying and can help them land and also gives them hope. So, that's what the group is here for. We have a nice mix of alumni as well as people in transition. So please leverage the resources and feel free to post out there. Again, the only caveat is it should be job search related or career management specific. That's what the people signed up for. So please, limit it to those topics. With that, I'll turn it back to David.
Great. Thank you very much, Frank. So, folks, I'm just want to thank you all again for joining us today and at the Breakfast Club New Jersey. We will be back next month. And Jerry, I'm terribly sorry. I don't remember who our presenter is next month, and I'm struggling. Do you have the list? Let me get to our speakers. Come. Oh, Colleen Ferrari will be here. Terrific. Colleen is a coach, and she will be talking about Rise Above the Competition, an interactive lesson on interviewing. So that's what Colleen will be presenting about. Terrific program. I've had the opportunity to meet Colleen before, and she's always a terrific presenter. So hopefully you will be able to join us next month as well. And so that will be, of course, second Saturday of July 10th. So with that, we will be hanging around the virtual conference room. I will end the recording and simply wish everyone a good weekend if you're going to be partying us now. And otherwise, stick around and we'll just hang out. So thanks, everyone. Have a good day.